He's got to be the last person you want your team when you're chasing points.
A little dodgy call where they should have gone the video ref there, end up costing the game.
If that was a forward pass, I'll bungee jump with no rope.
You basically can only beat who you have in front of you, so yeah, I think that's awesome.
And they're doing that, so good luck to them.
Crowd is ready, players are ready, referee says go.
Welcome to the most must-see NRL podcast. Welcome to...
the NRL Point of Difference.
I'm Rago.
I'm Bree.
And this is going to be a very special NRL Finals edition of the NRL Point of Difference. We're going to go into basically every game that is going to happen this weekend and then discuss who's going to be the winner, why we think they're going to win, and just a general analysis on where things can go wrong for the team that's going to lose and where the other team's going to win. That being said, the Roosters and Penrith, which will probably most likely be the blockbuster game of the round. Preety, who do you think is going to win this one? We've got Roosters who have just come off a disappointing loss against South Sydney where they were just completely blown off the park. And we've got Penrith in red-hot form where they got 15 or 16 wins in a row now.
Well, kind of saying how good's finals footy. I can hear the excitement in your voice, and it just changed. Just changed the.
I'm bloody excited. Don't worry about that.
How good. Well, this is my most anticipated game of the whole season. I just cannot wait for Roosters Penrith. I think Penrith, as we've mentioned on this pod, they haven't been tested for a while, and I'm really excited to see how they step up their game for a big finals game against the Roosters. And my I don't know, my gut says Roosters are going to win, but I feel like every week I just keep writing off Panthers and say they're going to have a week, they're going to have a dull week, a bad week, but they just keep exceeding my expectations week in, week out. Against the Dogs in the week, they had nothing to play for and they still win 42-0. They kept them to nothing, and I hope for their sake that they do win, because it'll be a fitting way. It'd be cruel to see Penrith lose and then might go in back-to-back sets. So I hope they do get up, but I'm excited for this one. I can't split them.
Well, that says it all. You're right. What you said about them keeping Bulldogs to 0, that says a lot about their defence. And I think Roosters' defence hasn't been the best this year.
No. They
have leaked in quite a few points. I mean, they've been outstanding in attack, and I think they really got found out against South Sydney just last week.
On the edges. And they're mainly with their right edge, which was Orbison, Nikavalu, and
but Orbison won't be the starting centre next week though, and I think Nikavalu will probably won't even play on the wing, will he?
No, both those players aren't in the team altogether, actually.
Yeah, so that will tighten up that edge defence. Who have they got instead? They got Manu and Morris as well. You're right. Okay, okay. So that's going to be a big difference in that left edge, just tightening up there. I know Johnson had a field day of scoring 5 tries, and it's going to be interesting. Penrith
will struggle to. I don't think points will be the issue. It's just a matter of if they can hold out Roosters' attack, because we all know it is the best in the competition. It comes in waves. You've got strike all over the field. So that's my only concern for Penrith.
I think Penrith have a better kicking game, if I'm going to pinpoint it. But I think if Penrith are to win this, I'm looking at Jerome Luai, because he's been their real energy factor this year, and everything kind of flows on from him. And I think the whole team kind of breathes through his energy. And the forward pack is always going to lift. I think they've been tip-top form completely throughout this year. And I think it's just a matter of Luai, if he can perform. And Cleary, I know that he'll do exactly what he does and organise and pinpoint, do his pinpoint kicks. Yeah.
We know he can get out of Cleary. It's just a matter of if Luai can keep his form going and really be a threat on that left edge for Penrith with the likes of Crichton and kick-outs. It's a real damaging edge they've got, and it would be causing the Roosters nightmares going into Friday.
So we commented about Penrith also having a bit of a lack of experience, namely in their spine, but they've actually shown a real lot of maturity this year. Just the way that they've been managing, especially the game against Bulldogs. I think there was an opportunity where Bulldogs could have hit back for it to kind of be within a try, but the way that Penrith just were professional and got the job done and managed to just shut Bulldogs away speaks volumes in this match. And I think if it is in a tight one, I think that probably Penrith will come away with it. But I'm looking at the Roosters team. I know that Friend just recently he got injured with a cheekbone injury. Do you
Big
think...
loss.
What was that?
Big loss, I think.
Yeah, so last 6 were replacing him. So, yeah, do you want to expand on that?
Oh, I just think Friend's a very experienced player, and especially in I don't think he is. He is a very experienced player, and he's played these big games many, many times. And then to throw in a player like Lassie, who's never played finals, it's a bit of a drop in experience and standard. And I think the Roosters will lose a lot out of that. I think it's a pretty big hole to fill, and
Yeah.
I think people are taking that as seriously as they should.
Yeah.
And also they lose the spot on the bench for a forward, because if Friend was there, you'd think he'd play 80. So now they've got to carry 2 hookers, so one less forward on the bench. So Orbison and Butcher have missed out.
Exactly. Yeah, I was just about to mention that because they got Lachlan Lamb named, so that's interesting. And they lose a lot especially in that Butcher. I think he's definitely worthy of a spot. And Orbison, he's that great utility. To be honest, I'd probably put Orbison in that number 14 role because I just think he can fill in every backline position and he can actually play hooker as well. But I understand what you're coming from where Lussick's got a very lack of experience, and I know I haven't been the biggest Jake Friend fan over the years, but I look at Verrills getting injured early in the year, and I think this is where it's going to really impact them in that injury because he could really fill in nicely there in that number 9 role, and I think he actually scored a try in the grand final last year against Canberra.
Verrills did, yeah.
Yeah. So
It shows how much they value Friend at the Roosters, because he hadn't played for a number of weeks last year and then was thrown into the finals at his first game back into the grand final. So they really value his appearance at the Roosters. So he'll be a big loss.
This one's definitely a hard one to pick. Who are you leaning towards?
Look, I really struggle to be against the Roosters. So I know Lasso will be listening, and he's going to be typical. But I just can't go against the Roosters. They're such an amazing team. But look, I would not be surprised if Penrith win. And yeah, I'd rather see Penrith win, to be honest. But I just think the Roosters will have too much class. Their attack, I can't go past it. And yeah, I think their experience in the finals the last 2 years will get them over the line in this massive game.
See, it's one of those things, that Roosters are a great team, but you look to that game, I don't know, back in 2014 where Sal kicked that field goal, and Penrith are going in that game as the underdogs, and Roosters absolutely, just collapsed and capitulated in that game, and I think I'm seeing shades of that game in this one. Yeah. I'm actually probably leaning towards Penrith in this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Roosters win. In saying that, so this is literally a flip of the coin for me. But just on current form, because I know how well Penrith have been playing the last 15 weeks, winning 15 in a row. They've literally only lost to Parramatta, and even in that game it was just, and they drew against the Newcastle Knights. So I think Penrith will win this and get a well-deserved week off.
Well, I think the only team that would have been upset with apart from the Roosters, with the Rabbitohs-Roosters game, would be Penrith, because what do you think? You think you'd hate to face a team coming off a loss like that? It could go both ways, but I think they would have just got punished at training, and they know how much they just want redemption. They just want to prove to everyone and themselves that they are not a football team that loses by 52 points, and they're going to be seeking blood.
I know that, but it can create doubt within the mind of the players. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like a good professional team like the Roosters, they will hit back, and you just know they will. So Penrith better be wary of that, and they can't take them too lightly. And just, but the thing is about Penrith is that they're a happy-go-lucky team where they don't take themselves too seriously, and it shows on the field. And their forwards will do the really hard work in the middle. So it will be a battle of the forward pack in this. To be honest, I think whoever gets on the top there, and I'm looking at the Roosters forward pack versus the Penrith forward pack, and you just look at they got Kickow, they got Tarmel's in tremendous form, they got Liam Martin, they got Sayo, and you look at the likes of Tupanua and Isaac Liu, and they don't just have. They are pretty on par, but I just think they're just below the names I just mentioned for Penrith.
Yeah, well, you got to remember Angus Crichton comes off the bench, and he's been hitting his best form in the last couple of weeks, so he's pretty handy to come.
That's true. No, he's been a great, and Lindsay Collins as well. They've both been great players this year, and obviously you got Money Bill Williams coming off the bench, but I don't think he'll make that much of a difference here.
No, I remember the reason I can't go against the Roosters is I remember midway through this year when they were absolutely flying and they were just playing some of the best footy I've seen in a long time, and it didn't look like anyone was going to beat them ever. But then they've had a little lull, but I think just the way that the team they are, I think they'll just be up for this game and they'll regain their form.
Yeah, that always happens to kind of the teams that always start off well. You look at Parramatta, like how well they started, and compare it to now and what they're going through. It's one of those things that's kind of a really bad thing to start so well, but I think just Penrith have just been the most consistent team throughout the whole year, and they well deserve to them and Melbourne, and I think Penrith definitely deserve to come first.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right.
Well, what's the next game? The Canberra versus Sharks, Saturday 5:30.
Yeah, that one's going to be an interesting one. So we've just come off the reserve grade Raiders team. Basically wiped the floor with Cronulla beating them by 12 points, and I know the score doesn't show a total picture of kind of how they played, but Raiders were all over them that game. They absolutely decimated them, and I think we
watched this game together, and the Sharks, they were just awful, weren't they?
Well, they also had Townsend, they got Johnson out, so they are missing both their playmakers, but they do have Townsend coming back this week. What do you think is going to happen in this one?
Well, the Raiders did have a number of players out last week, and they offered up a real second-rate side. With the Sharks, they were without Dugan, Katoa, Sophia Talakai, who's been their best player the last month. So they'll get a few players back too, but I don't know. In a fight that, look, from a betting perspective, the line's 14 points in a finals game. That's too high for me, and I think people are riding off the Sharks. I know they've been average all year, but I just think that, again, like the Roosters, have been here before. A number of those players played in the year they won the comp, and I would not be completely shocked if they won this game, but I'm backing the Raiders in. But I think it'll be a lot closer than people think.
No, I don't see it. I think just this will be a confidence booster for the Raiders. I just don't see Sharks being competitive in any form or fashion. I think just their defense is awful. Like they're just showing no urgency, and it's just as if I think Gallen criticised John Morris earlier this week and said that they're putting too much emphasis on attack and not enough on defense. And I probably agree with that sentiment. I don't agree with Gallen a lot. I know he makes a lot of outrageous claims, but in that one I do agree with, because they've been awful in defense. Like they just don't. They
drop off tackles.
Yeah, I mean, if you have like two repeats on their line, I guarantee that the team's going to score. And I'm really actually annoyed that Cronulla are actually in the 8 at the moment, because they haven't beat a top 8 team all year. And you see the way that Titans are been playing for the last 8 weeks, and they are highly deserving of a top 8 spot. And it's just a shame they started the season so poorly, because I would be so keen to see a Raiders Titans game, and I wouldn't even know who to tip in that one.
Yeah, no one wants to play the Titans now. They've another 2 weeks in the regular season, they would have been in the finals, but not to be, unfortunately. But you look back at the times where the Sharks have been without Sean Johnson, and I can remember the game against Newcastle where they were walloped, 40-10 or something like that. And then last week where they were trumped by the second-rate Canberra side. So he's one of the biggest losses to a team. I think he's so influential to the Sharks side in terms of their attack, which is really all they have because their defence, as we mentioned, is second-rate. So they'll even struggle to score points now.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at I actually did some quick research on the average points that Cronulla have leaked in, and you compare their 2016 Flanagan defence to 16.8 points per game, to now where they're leaking in about 30 odd points a game. So that's huge. That's nearly double what they were, and I don't think they're anywhere near a legitimate top contender for this premiership.
No way. Make up the numbers.
All right, well, we've got the next game here. We've got Storm and Parramatta. This one's an interesting game. So Melbourne are actually 5-0 against Parramatta in finals games. How do you see this one heading?
Well, I think this is a pretty similar one-sided affair in terms of betting with the same as the Sharks Raiders game. But again, I've got a little bit of faith and hope in the Eels that they can make this close, if not cause an upset. I don't think they'll win. I'm getting a bit too far ahead of myself, but I think it's definitely Eels will put up a fight against the Storm. I think they will take some confidence out of the last 2 weeks. I know there wasn't convincing wins, but they did get 2 wins on the board, which they were so desperately after. They've made the top 4, and can they regain some of that form early in the year is the question. What do you think?
Look, Dylan Brown's back, so that's actually a big plus.
Yeah.
I think they will keep it close, but I just think, well, you go back to that game that Parramatta beat Melbourne at in Parramatta or Bankwest Stadium, where it was 14-0, and I think Melbourne had Munster and Hughes out, and I think someone else. Yeah. I'm just trying to think. Maybe I'm not sure. But they had about 3 key injury players out, and then Parramatta just were completely dominant. But I honestly see that happening here. I think Melbourne just have too much class, and they're well disciplined, and they just know what to do in the big games, and especially in this initial game. And it is in Suncorp as well, so Melbourne will have that home field advantage, and I don't think there will be too many Parramatta fans there, because they obviously can't make the trip up because of coronavirus. So, yeah. Look, I think the way Parramatta can win this if they just go up the middle. That's been their strength all year, just hit right. Straight up. And I think they're going too much side to side. And Moses has been a bit iffy there with that pairing with Dryfield, and then later with Will Smith last round. But I think his best pairing is obviously with Dylan Brown. And the thing is, Dylan Brown being back is a big in. And I think it just frees Mitchell Moses up to focus on his running game, and Dylan Brown obviously with his kicking game. I'm kind of leaning towards a Melbourne 1-12 win, but I don't see Parramatta winning this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And you're right, Parramatta's strengths are their forward pack. When they were playing some of their best footy earlier in the year, Campbell Gillard, 200 plus metres, Paulo, 200 plus metres, offload. And they're missing their second phase footy has been a bit of a lack. There hasn't been as many offloads, which has really diminished their attack. But then you look at the Storm's forward pack, and you could argue they've got the best pack in the finals, in the team to the left in the finals. So, Parramatta are going to have to win this. Their forwards are really going to have to aim up.
Well, you see a common pattern with basically all top 4 teams. They've got a really strong forward pack. You look at Roosters and Penrith, and then you got obviously Melbourne and Parramatta. Parramatta probably have the weakest pack out of the top 4, I would say, but they're still very strong. You've got Paulo and Gillard, who have been absolutely dominant this year, and then you got Madison and Nathan Brown even. Yeah, they've got a lot of talent.
If you win the ascendancy in the middle, if you're winning the ruck, quick play the ball, set restarts, especially with the new rule, you're going to go a long way to winning the game. So it's no coincidence that those good teams have got a very good forward pack.
Yeah, I know, I know. I think this one's a pretty straightforward game. But like it would be interesting to see how the finals would flip on its head if Parramatta were to get the win and get the week off, and that would be actually an interesting thing. And I wouldn't mind that if that did happen because I think you would end up having Melbourne versus. I'm just trying to think. You would have Melbourne versus the winner of South and Newcastle. So that probably whoever the winner of this is probably going to make the top four, like the final four anyway, in my opinion. Unless Rabbitohs are willing to show some strong form and build off the momentum after that win against Roosters. But that brings us up into the final game of this round of this finals first week. We've got Rabbitohs and Newcastle, and this one the bookies are all over Rabbitohs. Sorry, they've basically no one is wanting to back Newcastle after that terrible game against Titans, and then you've got that absolute destroying display that the Rabbitohs put on against. It was an absolute clinic. What, Johnson scored a hat trick in the last 10 minutes? It was ridiculous. I know one of them was a fake try, but nonetheless,
it was. I've never seen anything like it on a rugby league field in my life. For him to be 4 tries before the game, 4 tries behind leading tries before the game against the reigning premiers, and then to score 5 and go past him is just unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, on the odds list, that would have probably been like 10,000 to 1, if not more. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, but he's a try-scoring machine, Alex Johnson, and I think we had this discussion earlier in the year. He's definitely a specialist winger, and he just doesn't feel that fullback spot as well as he should because he obviously hasn't got that ball playing skill. And I think Corey Allen was really, a really revelation for the Rabbitohs team once Mitchell got injured. So Mitchell has been an outstanding. I mean, he didn't start the season the best, but once he got over those little hiccups, he was fantastic, and he was really what Rabbitohs were missing. But Corey Allen has kind of missed no step there. I actually rate him as a really good player, and he also got Campbell Graham as well. I think you rate him as one of the top centers in the game.
Oh, well, I wouldn't go that far, the top centers, but I think he's had a breakout year, and he's been playing wing most of his career, and he's filled in the centre position this year, and he's done a very more than capable job. And he has put his hand up Origin selection, especially with the news that Tommy Turbo won't be there. So there's a spot there if they choose to go that way, and I think he'll hold his own. But I think
that's a little excessive, but go on.
Sorry?
So I think that's probably a little excessive, but go on.
Well, you see, I rate him as the best player in the game.
Yeah, okay, but I'm not saying Origin. That's a bit excessive there, but nonetheless.
Well, Staggs is injured, so you've got Lomax was in the squad. So who would be there?
Yeah, I don't know. Lomax isn't in the squad. Yeah, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think you probably have to put. You might even slot Gutherson in on the wing and maybe Kodrick at centre. I think that's an option, unless you put Ferguson on the wing and then you. I think there's definitely a key that Fittler will find that will fit and it'll make it work. Look, you compare the New South Wales outside backs to the Queensland outside backs, and it's comparing apples and what's a good apples and I don't know shit. I guess. What else is two completely stark different things? But look, you got Edric Lee in contention for Origin for Queensland. That's ridiculous. I think there's cause to bring Inglis back as well, but nonetheless, it's ridiculous. Well, I know it's a bit of a sidebar, but who would you actually pick as a centre, or what would you do?
Well, I think Lomax should be brought into the squad. I know he's only had this year is his only year, but he has been in a team that's losing most weeks and being dominated. He is often a shining light, and I think he's a very, very talented player. And he's got a big future in the game.
Look, sorry.
So I'd have Lomax and Graham in the squad. I think they're the next two centres after Staggs is injured. Otherwise, Staggs would be number 1 in my opinion. But
obviously, he's out. Yeah.
I can't. You mentioned Ramey, and I think he's below those two. So I think Lomax and Graham will be in the squad, and I don't know who's. I'd probably pick Lomax, to be honest.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't pick Graham in because of his defensive lapses, and I do have similar concerns with Lomax. So, yeah, he is strong one-on-one defensively, but sometimes his reads can be a bit off, where he'll rush up on the 5'8", or make the wrong decision in picking the second row instead of the centre. And he actually is leading the top negative plays in the NRL, and I know a lot of those are just off. He gets thrown the ball in the last tackle and he does a really smelly kick or...
well, that's his play was the insider at fault to that, not him.
Yeah, look, I think he's too young to be put in Origin. I would lean to more experience in this situation. I think it's not worth the risk.
Is he eligible?
I think he is eligible, but I think both Morris brothers have retired. Otherwise, I would throw Brett Morris potentially as one of the wingers, without a doubt.
I knew Brett Morris had retired, but are you sure Josh has? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure they both retired around the same time. Maybe Josh a bit earlier, and then Brett followed suit a couple of years later. But yeah, I don't know if that was just because he wasn't getting picked on form, but I think there was a couple of years where there could have been an opportunity to put Josh Morris in. They didn't, but nonetheless, I personally would probably go to Codrick at centre, and then maybe go Ferguson or Gutherson on the wing, and just do something safe. There's no real reason to take a risk this year. New South Wales have the control, but nonetheless, we should probably focus on this Rabbitohs Newcastle game. So Newcastle coming off an absolute disgusting display against Titans, and I know Titans are playing very well, but Newcastle had so much to play for in that game and showed absolutely nothing. If they won the game, they would have got the home final against Rabbitohs. But now the game is at ANZ. So, what do you think? Who do you think is going to be a clear winner here?
Well, it's an interesting one because if you asked me before last week's round, I would have been, it could go either way. Knights have shown they can match it with the big boys at some patches throughout the year, and so have South. So they both had inconsistent years, but then after the weekend, it's like you got to go South after what they put up and what Newcastle dished up. But that's where it gets interesting because all of a sudden South have got a lot of expectation surrounding the team because they've had that unbelievable performance, and all of a sudden there's a bit of pressure on them to do something in this finals campaign. Whereas the Knights, everyone's writing them off. So if they get a win, then happy days. They haven't got a lot to lose. Yeah,
I kind of agree with you where everything is thrown at the Rabbitohs. Like all the bookies are on it. And I wouldn't be surprised because we know what Newcastle are at their best. And they got the likes of Ponga and Pearce when he's on can be a real danger man. Look, I don't know why, but they're putting Kurt Mann at number 9 instead of Chris Randall. I really rate Randall as a starting hooker, and I'm not sure why they're not starting him. But nonetheless, I think Newcastle, if they can get in the grind with South Sydney, can come away with a win. But they need to stick with them early and maintain it. If South Sydney get an early lead, I think it's all but over.
Yeah, I agree with you on that point with the hooker. I think, especially in a finals game, hookers are one of those positions where it's you always want to go the specialist hooker because they've grown up learning the craft of looking out for markers, seeing when they're laps in defence, when the defence is going backwards, knowing to scoot, knowing to pass. So those sort of traits, a filling hooker like Kurt Mann wouldn't necessarily have those eyes up footy skills at hooker. So that's why I'd probably lean towards playing Randall. I think they've played better when he's been starting too.
Yeah, well, I remember that game against St George where he absolutely cut them up from the back of the Saifidi brothers. So, yeah, I don't like the fact that Mann... I think you've got to put Mann in the team, but I think Newcastle haven't been playing that well since Lenore came in. I think he's showed some defensive lapses, and I think I would probably...
I don't know why they don't... Like, Mann was their starting 5'8", yeah? So he's the number one 5'8" at the club. So I would be putting him at 5'8" where he belongs. And then backing young Randall to do the job of hooker.
Yeah, I probably agree with that, to be honest. And even if you put Lean on the bench as a utility, I wouldn't mind that combination. But look, this one's hard to pick for me. I think you have to go for the Rabbitohs because just the way that they performed against Roosters, but my fear is that was their grand final and that they'll treat it as that, and then they become a bit complacent.
Yeah.
And I know Bennett is behind the machine, and he's the most intelligent minds in the game. It's just a matter of whether he can get that across to It's a tough one. I think Rabbitohs definitely should be and will be the favourites and should win. But I would not be surprised if Newcastle win, as I mentioned.
Yeah, well, Rabbitohs are just going to play their own game. As soon as they play to the standard of the opposition, as soon as early with the Rabbitohs, if it's a few errors early, it's been their huge Achilles heel this year. If they get rid of that, they complete high, and they give them a chance to be in the game. I think they're a much, much better side. With both at their best, I think South will beat them every day of the week. It's just a matter of which South side turns up and which Newcastle side turns up because, as we've seen all year, they've one week they're diamonds, one week they're rocks. So who knows what you're going to get this week?
Yeah, I think it's just that if they can get back to their form at the start of the year where I think that game against Bulldogs, that was their downfall, and that was a game they definitely should have won, and I think that was just the stabbing wound into their season. So unfortunately, it will be probably a short survival series for Newcastle Knights, similar to Cronulla. So those two teams are the teams I will probably say will drop out, and I am leaning towards having. Yeah. And so, based on that, we kind of have an interesting game between Rabbitohs and the loser of Melbourne and Parramatta. So that would be actually a really interesting game to watch, and especially if Rabbitohs are in tremendous form, and it will be exciting to watch if Rabbitohs can continue it.
Yeah, well, 100%, and that would be cruel for Parramatta to go out in straight sets again after the year they've had. And it's interesting to note the loser of Penrith Roosters, they've got a very hard draw to get back into the grand final because they'll play, you'd think, the Canberra Raiders, which I'll tell you what, Canberra Raiders could beat both those sides on their day. And then you play probably the Storm and the Freedom. So it makes it tough for that game, the loser. Yeah,
that's actually a good point. And I think the loser of that will ultimately not be able to win the comp. So I think that's a must-win for either of those teams.
I actually think the winner of Roosters Penrith will win the comp.
And the loser will get kicked out. Look,
yeah.
Is that your bold prediction for this week?
Yeah, winner. This is the grand final. Winner of this will win the grand final.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with that. I really back that prediction, and I think that's a fair assessment. And that reminds me, yeah, I think there's always usually a game like that. The first week where first versus fourth ends up being the deciding game, and I think it really matters. I think you really want that week off, and it's so important to get that week off, especially if you have to verse a team like Canberra where they can put anyone to shame, and they arguably should be a top 4 team. And if I was to say a top 4 team would drop out, it'd have to be Parramatta because just on form, but nonetheless. My bold prediction, I am going to say Josh Adokar and Alex Johnston to both score doubles this weekend.
Nice, I like it.
All right.
That could be a good little bet. You should put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, I might do a quickie, but knowing my predictions on bold predictions, I have not.
Save your money.
Yeah, exactly. I might do it on the opposite wingers to score more than Alex Johnston and Adokar, just to back myself. So if I win the bet, then I can say, oh yeah, at least I won money. If I win the bold prediction, then I can say, well, at least I won the bold prediction.
He's covering her ass.
Yeah. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to cover this week? All right. Well, that's all the games covered this week. Who knew we'd pump out close to half an hour of conversations with this? I am so excited for this week of rugby league. And you know what? I cut off all social ties this weekend. I actually got asked out on a date this weekend. I had to reject it, unfortunately. So
Wow.
you can't miss finals football.
And
Look, you can always date women. You can't watch finals football again. I mean, you can never watch it live. You can only watch it live once.
I honestly said that exact quote this weekend to a guy at work. But see, I don't know about you denying the female attention because you struggle to get that. So you might take a chance there.
Oh no! Look, if you had to pick one or the other, you have to pick rugby league. There's an obvious choice here.
Yeah, well, I've told Mrs. Preedy all week that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is dedicated to rugby league, and funnily enough, it's worked out that she's busy all weekend, so it works out well sometimes.
Maybe she's secretly watching rugby league without telling you.
Oh, don't get me too excited.
Yeah, she doesn't want to get you too excited. I think you end up marrying her. That's maybe what she's fearing.
I'll have to get my knee dirty if that's the case.
Well, you've also got the. I mean, I guess you got Friday and Saturday moving forward, so you can pretty much have the Sunday free. So you know what? I think the women can wait one weekend.
Yeah, and now they get an extra day because now there's no Thursday night league, so that could be their day now.
That's true. That's why we're recording this podcast. well, you're right, but this is ultimately going to take more preference than that. So it goes rugby league, podcast, and then women.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, and they'll respect that and know that that's where they stand.
All right. Well, having said all that, that's all the time we have for this week, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the finals footy. How good?